So I am sorry because I missed the morning, but I heard it was like really good speakers talking about their experience, how they found their careers. And what I'm going to talk about is a little bit different, but it definitely pertains to your work life, which is just drugs and alcohol, and how what we talked about yesterday with me was self-care. And so I'm going to sort of talk about ways that we take care of ourselves and how alcohol and drugs sometimes leads us to feel like we're taking care of ourselves. Like, I know sometimes people have like a really long and difficult day, and you might say this, or you might hear someone else say this, like, oh, I can't wait to have a drink, you know, when I get home. And that can feel like self-care because it's a way to like decompress and change our emotions. Other people, it might be smoking weed, because that can also make you feel really relaxed. I know that's also can be used sometimes to help people fall asleep. So it can feel like self-care. And I'm not like here to tell you not to be doing that, but it's just like, let's have multiple ways that we are able to decompress. Because if it's a substance, whatever that substance is, then you're reliant on that, which doesn't mean that you like have a substance use disorder or like you're an addict, but like if that's the only way that you can fall asleep or the only way that you can decompress at the end of a difficult day, then you're relying on that. So we talked a little bit the last time I was here about mindfulness. So I'm wondering if you guys could either unmute or put in the chat like ways that you decompress at the end of a difficult day. Like I myself like to take a bike ride, or I have a dog and I live near the woods in Philadelphia, like near the Wissahick. And so for me, that's a really nice way to change the way that I'm feeling at the end of a difficult day. It's just like to get in nature and walk the dog. A nap is awesome. AC, thank you for putting that in the chat. And you guys, if I say your name wrong, please correct me because I don't want to do that. A nap is a really nice way to just sort of like, tension tamer tea is one of my favorites. Miss Melissa put tension tamer tea in there, which is really nice. Gets rid of headaches, tastes good. There's also a nice ritual to making a cup of tea, which can be really soothing, just that in itself, just the ritual of like getting the kettle on and picking out your tea. Maybe making that a mindful practice too, like smelling the tea, thinking about it while you're making it, watching the water change color. All of that is like a mindful way to make a cup of tea. Anybody else? Hot shower is great. Watching Netflix with your boyfriend, also very nice. Could be best friend, I'm not sure. Listening to music, Derek, that's a great way. Yeah, and actually we were kind of talking about that when we first came on. I don't know if you were here, but the music that was playing, we were talking about how soothing that was and how that would be helpful, like to help us relax, just listening to that kind of music. Yeah, Hanaja, self-care, little sleep or self-care is really good. Are you comfortable putting what you do for self-care if you've had a difficult day? Yeah, talking to your boyfriend, talking to someone you care about, and someone who cares about us is always a really good way to decompress. Cold pillow, I like that. That's really nice. Yeah. So I'm going to ask some questions that are just about drugs and alcohol, and it's sort of like a quiz. So if you are comfortable unmuting or putting it in the chat. So regarding crack or cocaine, I'm going to read 4 statements, and I would like you to put in there which one is not true. Cocaine speeds up the body's central nervous system. Possession, buying, importing, or exporting is illegal. It is legal in some states, or it is highly addictive. And one of those is false. So I'll read them again. Cocaine is highly addictive. It's legal in some states. It's illegal in any form, or it speeds up the body's central nervous system. Anybody have a guess on which one of those is not true? Legal in some states. Very good. Is that Dej? Is that how you say your name? Legal in some states is the one that is false. So there's been a lot of changes in drug laws recently, mostly around marijuana, but cocaine is 100% for any kind of use illegal everywhere in the United States. So now here is going to be true or false. The more you use drugs, the more you require to achieve the same effect. And that would be any drug. That would include caffeine. Like if you're drinking caffeine, do you need more to have the same effect? If you're smoking nicotine or marijuana, if you're drinking, like as you use it, do you need more to achieve the same effect? True. Awesome. Lots of truths in there. Very good. That's true. So, and I think a lot of times we don't even think about caffeine, but I know many people use caffeine in the morning, myself included. But yeah, the more you use it, the more you need to use it. And that's just something to think about with anything that we put in our bodies, like to just pay attention to how it's interacting with our body and what it makes us feel and what the desired effect is, like what we want to feel when we're using it. So this next one is just opinion, your own opinion. So obviously no right or wrong answer. Do you feel like drug use is a normal part of growing up? And that's just like a yes or no. Does it feel, or you're not sure that using drugs is just a normal experience that kids have when they're growing up? I can say for me, when I was in high school, it definitely felt like it was. I'm glad there's a lot of no's in here. Yeah, so I went to high school in the 80s, and I would say like drinking was definitely very common. Yeah, and smoking weed for sure as well, but more so drinking when I was a kid. So same opinion. Do you feel like it's a problem in high school? Is it a big problem, not a problem, small problem?
Yeah, someone in the chat saying that yes, it is a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, big problem, big problem. So if we were going to talk, and I know like it's really not comfortable to talk about personal experiences on a call like this, because one, I'm a complete stranger, and two, this is like a work ready call, but nothing that you would say would be reflective of your experience in the program. But is there something that you personally have experienced, like peer pressure? Does that feel like a problem with your own personal experiences?
Oh, I'll share. Being as though I actually coach youth basketball, but I do high school kids, and I'm finding out more and more because I know growing up, like you said, you're 80s, went to high school, I went 80s also. More and more of the kids that I work with, they have to, which they say they have to, like they all smoke weed. They all want to smoke.
Mm-hmm.
And I know growing up, being an athlete, you never wanted to drink, you never wanted to smoke, especially smoke because you didn't want anything to mess with your breathing. But it seems like every time we go away now, there's one or two kids that we have to check to make sure that they don't have anything,
Mm-hmm.
which I know is legal in most states, but we try to prevent them from using it as much as we can. But a lot of them smoke, and it's like 14-year-olds up to, because I do 14 to 17, and
Mm-hmm.
they all smoke.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with that completely.
Someone said Julian and vaping is big, a big thing.
A lot of pressure with that. Yep. Yeah, for sure. And I think even if you're vaping weed, then it feels like it's not as detrimental to your health, but it still is. It's still really bad for you. And I just want to say, because I would be remiss if I did not, that your beautiful brains right now are growing. They're growing until you turn 25. And so like my brain is in decline, your brain is growing. So everything that you put into your body right now affects your brain. And there is a ton of research about just what marijuana does to your short-term memory loss, like permanent short-term memory loss. So you just want to, not use it as frequently, or even wait till you're over 25, or just be aware that when you're putting it in your body, you're changing your brain. The way that anybody who was with me the last time I spoke, I talked about how practicing mindfulness can change your brain in a really good way, because your brain's a living organism, right? So it's changing with everything that you do to it. So when you smoke, that also changes your brain in a negative way. And Art brought up one of my favorite things to talk about, which is just the legality around marijuana, because and this is really recent for anybody who's older, but like Philadelphia's laws now are very relaxed, but they did not used to be. So I want you to put in the chat for me, please, if you think that marijuana use is legal in the United States. And so I don't want to do like a civics lesson, but so there's federal law and state law. So I can tell you just out of the gate that federally it is not legal. And then there are different state laws. So what that means is that if you are in a state where it's legal and you travel to a state where it's not legal, you will get arrested if they find that you have it. So it's not legal in the United States. The 10th Amendment, now that's a civics lesson. What's the 10th Amendment, Takeda?
So it's basically anything that's not stated in the Constitution is left for the states to decide, and the national
Love
doesn't
that.
have power for that.
So good. That was awesome.
She almost bit me in my face.
So I think federally it will change. I honestly do. I think that at some point marijuana is going to be treated much like alcohol is, but we're just not there yet. So I just want to make sure that nobody that ever sits with me in any of these kind of workshops that I do leaves not understanding the law around it, because I think everybody's very familiar with I have to be 21 to drink legally. So as of June 2021, 18 states and Washington, D.C. have legalized possession and personal use of marijuana for recreational purposes. So that's different than medicinal, which you have to go to a doctor and get a prescription for and have that filled. So just your recreational use of marijuana is not legal in the state of Pennsylvania. In Philadelphia, they've decriminalized it. So that's why you, like anywhere you go now, people are smoking. I smell smoke everywhere I go now. But if you go just outside of Philadelphia, if you go into Montgomery County, Delaware County, like literally just over the line, and you are smoking publicly and an officer sees you, he can arrest you and you will get a charge.
Wait, but don't cities have to follow state laws?
Well, Philadelphia, and that really is more about what the district attorney did in the city of Philadelphia. He just decriminalized the use of it. So like they could still write you a ticket and you would pay a fine, but you won't be arrested for it. And because of that, the police just really are not worried about it anymore.
Although yeah, they feel like it takes up too much time, too much of the court's time, and you have to have assistant DA or representation for something that you can pay a low fine for it. And most judges are not going to throw you in jail for it.
Exactly. Yep. And but I mean, you just have to be 21, so just be aware of that. But literally, like, because I've worked in different capacities, like in treatment and in Delaware County, which is so close, you'll get arrested. Yeah, and they would love to charge you. So just really, really please be mindful of like, where you're doing things if you're doing it. Does anybody have any questions about that? I just want to make sure that feels really clear for you.
I had a question that's a bit different on like why it takes the frontal lobe 25 years to develop.
Say that again. I heard like the last part of it.
Why does it take the frontal lobe like 25 years to develop?
Why you think it does not?
No, why does it?
Oh,
like most of your brain is developed other than the frontal lobe.
Yeah, it just keeps growing, and I do not have the answer to that. And actually 25 is like a pretty new theory, because they used to say like 18 to 20 and they keep bumping it up, but it seems to be like the general consensus is 25 now. And that is, and you're right, the frontal lobe of your brain is what regulates your impulses, and that's why impulsivity is so different in young people than it is in older people. Older people are just, take more time with their decisions, and it really is just because that part of their brain is more developed. So why do we think we're talking about this during a work program, like when we're talking about getting employment? Anybody have any thoughts on that? So quiet, Melissa. So one, because if you're drinking or smoking, or even smoking cigarettes, like it just affects your ability to be productive in the workplace, right? If you've had a lot to drink the night before, you're probably not going to be as productive the following day. If you're like stepping out to smoke, you're not going to be as productive. And certainly with smoking weed. And there still are, no matter what the laws are around it, there's always going to be employers that are going to drug test and just have their own feelings about if you can be employed if you test positive. And that may change, like we may see that change. As I said, I really do think it's going to change, much the same way alcohol is legal, but that just, we're not there yet.
I have a question. So
Yeah,
if you have like, okay, I don't know if this is like a stupid question, but anyways, if you, if like your family, like maybe like one side of your family is like known to smoke or vape, and like they maybe were past smokers or like current smokers or anything like that, could it had like hence like kind of be genetic in any way, or and like I guess genetic in any way?
hi Caitlin, it's nice to see you. So substance use disorder and alcohol use disorder, which are recognized by the AMA as a disease, as diseases, and that's when we're talking about addiction. There is a belief that there's a hereditary component to that it's both. But yeah, there's definitely a belief that there is genetics involved in those disorders. And also just culturally, and that's like the debate between nature versus nurture, right? But culturally, if we live somewhere, like I grew up in an Irish family and drinking was a big part of what happened in my family. At a certain age, you were allowed to drink at the table, and it was definitely much, much too young to really be appropriate to drink. And there is tons of alcoholism in my family. So that's sort of like a combination there of like genetics, and also just like that it was an accepted thing in my home to drink at a young age, and to drink socially, and to drink after work, and all of those things. So like my family, we grew up thinking that drinking was a great thing and part of a normal life. So it would be the same if you grew up in a family where people smoked, and not even just smoked. Like if you grew up in a family where people did very different kinds of drugs, but they did it in the home, then yeah, it would seem commonplace and normal, and would be like feel more comfortable, to pick up and try. And I think, and I said this at the beginning, I think what we want to do with anything is just pay attention to what it makes us feel like, and if we like that feeling, and if we like that feeling, why? Like, is it because we don't want to feel what we are feeling? Like if we're sad or anxious or angry and that feels uncomfortable, if we put something else in our body, does that make us feel more comfortable? And I think what's tricky, because I absolutely get how great it is to like put a substance in and feel differently, is it's automatic, right? So nothing I'm going to be able to give you as a tool is going to be as like automatic as like smoking or drinking, right? That's just instant gratification. And so I just would invite everybody to please just pay attention to what you're feeling when you want to drink or smoke. And that includes nicotine, because nicotine is a relaxer, right? It's a depressant. So like, that's why people get addicted to nicotine too, because if they feel stressed and they smoke, they feel less stressed. So I promise I 100% understand the allure of changing the way we feel through a substance. We just want to understand other ways to do that. Did I even answer your question? I feel like I just like said a lot of words. Okay. Yeah, because I think people do, experience different substances in their home and different levels of comfort with them.
And I like what you said more about the patterns, because sometimes, to be like perfectly candid, my children's father was addicted. He had a substance. I always get the terms wrong. Substance use disorder. And he subsequently he died of an overdose.
Oh.
And in 2016. And I was talking to my daughters are in their 20s now, I've been talking to them, they had a fear like that they automatically would pick up addictive behaviors. And we talked to therapists about it. So one of the things with them, while there is a chance, because they basically grew up around me and there was a lot of patterns that were kind of not supporting drug use in our household,
Mm.
that kind of beefs up their, gives them more resilience against
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
So there are things you
Right.
can do, even if you're quote unquote predisposed to a certain thing in your family. There's certain things like the things we're talking about here that can help you not pick up those habits, if that helps.
Yeah, no, and I'm so sorry about your kid's dad, Melissa, but thank you for sharing that, because that's absolutely true. And that is why we at JFCS think it's important to talk about, but like the more we talk about just understanding what you're feeling and what you're feeling when you put a substance in your body, because people that become addicted have a very different response to drugs and alcohol than people that do not. And so you just want to be mindful of like what it actually feels like when you're putting it in your body. Yeah. I'm trying to think of other ways to practice self-care, like for things like that we're talking about when you want to just feel differently than you're feeling. I think what everybody put in the chat is really good. Talking about it, sometimes writing about it. Does anybody keep a journal? Sometimes just like being able to get your thoughts out of your brain can be helpful and change the way you're feeling. So writing about it can be helpful. I know a couple people said talking about it. Oh, wait. Melissa, I'm sorry, MRI studies of the brain show that developmental processes tend to occur in the brain in a back to front pattern, explaining why Taita, Miss Melissa answered your question much better.
I was trying to look it up. I'm a person that I ask a lot of questions to Taita, so I want to know, I go to
Well,
my
that's awesome.
Google.
So it says the processes tend to occur in the brain in a back to front pattern, and that's why the prefrontal cortex develops last. Very cool. That's awesome. So do you guys have any like thoughts about all of this information or questions? Because I'm going to be back. I'm going to be back for another one, so I'll have to try and make it a little more dynamic.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Charlene, and I'm one of the staff with JFCS. Good morning. My question, you had mentioned something about 5 minutes ago in reference to Delaware County and Philadelphia. Can you explain that one more time?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I do think when I talk to teenagers, it's something I think it's really important to talk about. So, and I'm pretty sure it happened under Larry Krasner, but only very recently did Philadelphia decriminalize the personal use of marijuana. So in the city of Pennsylvania, if you are caught smoking, and none of this is about like transporting pounds of drugs, I'm talking about like personal use of marijuana, you can get written a ticket. A police officer can write you a ticket and you'll have to pay a fine. I think that happens very infrequently. I don't think in the city very much happens around the personal use of marijuana. If you go to any of the surrounding counties, and I just picked Delaware and Montgomery County because I just know those from my work in those counties, you can still go to jail for that. Like you can still get arrested, go to jail, have a bail set. If you can't pay the bail, you stay in jail, have a court case, be convicted and go to prison, like for personal use. So I don't want kids in Philadelphia to have a false sense, especially like if they go to school somewhere, outside of Philadelphia, or they're just like at a party outside of the city, they're with their friends or whatever. I just want them to have a real understanding that Philadelphia's regulations around use is very different than the surrounding counties.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. And the reason why I ask more in regards to that, because for some students where they may live at, they may go into other counties and you just think it's all Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
And you don't understand the separation. So what occurs here in Philadelphia and what is allowed here in Philadelphia may not be allowed in different counties. And that can be, I'm going to 69th Street to go shopping.
You're in Upper Darby.
69th Street to go shopping is Delaware County. I'm going to King of Prussia Mall. King of Prussia Mall is Montgomery County. So there are different counties that we are interchanging that, but we don't know the rules. And that's why I asked you to explain that once again, because when you mentioned it the first time, the light bulb went off. And I didn't, so that's why I asked. And I'm sorry that I waited so long to ask, but it kept nagging at me. And that's why I asked to explain that again, so that our students will know the difference.
100%. No, I'm so glad you asked, because I really feel like that's one of the most important things I can talk about. Because like you said, we don't think about what county we're in ever. We go in and out of different counties all the time without thinking about it. And you brought up two amazing ones, right? 69th Street and the King of Prussia Mall. People go to those all the time. Yep. And you're in a county where you're going to get in trouble. And I don't want anybody to get in trouble. Like, we just want to make sure that you're safe, that you know the laws, that you're taking care of yourself, and that you have all the information that you can to be safe. So I'm really glad you asked, to just sort of underline that point. So I have 2 minutes. Anybody? How could you support someone who's going through withdrawal? That's a great question, AC. If you're comfortable, can you tell me what they're withdrawing from? Because if they're withdrawing from alcohol, that can actually be dangerous. They would need like medical assistance sometimes if you're withdrawing from alcohol, because your organs seize up. And I don't think everybody's aware of that, because movies spend a lot of time talking about opiates. Okay, so if they're withdrawing from opiate use, which is probably heroin or fentanyl, or like Oxycontin if they're getting a prescription, they're very sick. They're going to be very physically sick. They're going to have a fever. They're going to be sweating. They're going to be throwing up. Like, they're going to be very, very sick. And I'm sorry to tell you that you really, unless you want to take them to the hospital and get them on like a drip, you just want to hydrate them, stay with them, keep them hydrated. And it takes about 2 or 3 days. But they're not in, well, I don't want to give medical advice, actually. I mean, I would call someone, but people detox from opiates in prison. Like, you know, they don't give you anything. You just like sit and kind of go through it. But you would just want to like stay with them, make sure they're hydrated. If they're getting sick, make sure that they're like getting sick safely, so they don't like throw up while they're passed out and they could choke on that. Like, you just want to like, can I help you with this offline? Like, I would love to be able to talk to you offline, AC, if you're comfortable with that. Okay, so let's get, Miss Melissa, can you coordinate that for me? Okay, so I have a meeting from 11:30 to 12, but then I will reach out to you, okay? And really, Miss Melissa has my information for anybody. If you have a question like that and you just want help or more information, I'm here. I'm very happy to talk to you about it. And if you or someone you're caring about needs help, like bigger help with like, you know, talking to someone in treatment, like I can absolutely help find that for you. So please don't hesitate to, Miss Melissa can give everyone my information and you can contact me. Yeah, so my Miss Melissa just put my email in the chat. I'm going to put my cell phone number in there too, which I don't even know it, so I'm looking it up. Yeah, so that's for anybody. If you have something that's happening and you just want to talk it through, you just want advice or support or help, I'm absolutely here. Okay. So I apologize. I have to jump off because I have a meeting right now. But you guys, it was so nice to see you. Thank you for participating. Thank you for turning your cameras on and showing up in the chat for me. I appreciate it. Yeah, my information is in there if anybody needs anything. And I will see you guys, I think, next week or a couple of weeks.